Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show, opposition party leaders from across the four nations have called for the resignation of Boris Johnson after he became the first Prime Minister in history found to have broken the law in office for breaking lockdown rules. Our business correspondent Simon Pusey will be joining me in the studio with reactions. And by the end of the month, citizens from one of the world's richest economies will be voting in a new president. But will France remain to the left or head to the right? Paolo Ciocchetti, a political scientist at the European University Institute, will be providing some analysis from Innsbruck in Austria. Then later, WBO cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie spoke to Channel's Business Global about how his challenging upbringing has inspired him to give back to young boxing fans in Nigeria. But first, let's have a look at the unprecedented news story that has emerged from the UK this week. Boris Johnson has become the first Prime Minister in history found to have broken the law in office. The Conservative Party leader, alongside his wife Carrie Simons and the embattled Chancellor Rishi Sunak, were all slapped with fines from police for attending a gathering in Downing Street in breach of COVID rules.
I understand the anger that many will feel that I myself fell short when it came to observing the very rules which the government I lead had introduced to protect the public. And I accept in all sincerity that people had the right to expect better. And now I feel an even greater sense of obligation to deliver on the priorities of the British people.
Well, earlier I spoke with our business correspondent Simon Pusey for some analysis. Simon, so according to YouGov, the vast majority of the British public want the Prime Minister to resign, will he?
No, he won't resign. He'll have to be forced out. There'll have to be a vote like we were talking about many months ago before the Ukraine crisis happened. I think it's just very lucky, really, that there's no PMQs this week. There's no Prime Minister's questions, because obviously this is what everyone would be talking about, and they're on Easter holidays. Yeah, they've both rejected. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak both said that they're not going to resign. Obviously, Carrie Simons has also been fined as well. They've all apologised. I think they're hoping that this Ukraine crisis and also cost of living crisis, there's other things that are around that maybe the public may have forgotten and the anger may have subsided of all those months ago. But it really hasn't, and all opposition parties, pretty much all opposition MPs, want them to resign, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to do something more than they've currently done, which is basically apologise. Boris saying in all frankness at the time, it did not occur to me that this might have been in breach of the rules, which is ludicrous. He knew the rules. He was telling everyone every day to stick to the rules, as were...
He created them, right?
He did, as was his whole government. And a lot of people are retweeting things that were put out at the time, which was, you know, don't be selfish, stay at home, let's beat this virus. And all the time, 16 different parties, one of which Boris Johnson's own birthday party. It's really hard to see how he can stay, but he's not someone who will resign. He's just not going to do that. I think practically the main problem for both of them is not that they've broken the law, and Boris Johnson's the first sitting Prime Minister to break the law.
In history, yes.
In history. It's not that. It's that they lied in Parliament, that they misled Parliament. And both of them have in Parliament said that they didn't go to any of these parties, that they didn't think they were breaking any
knowingly.
rules. Exactly. And how can they stay? You know, that's the ministerial code. Either they have to completely change the constitution, the ministerial code, or they have to resign. So I guess what Boris has always done, Boris Johnson, is kick the can down the road. When times have got tough, he's blustered his way through it and hopes that, you know, a week is a long time in politics, something will come up. And the Ukraine crisis has come up, and I think his stock has risen. And he's been doing
well, hasn't he?
His stock has risen because, you know, Vladimir Putin's come out and said that Boris Johnson is the most anti-Russian Western leader. And Boris seems to have really taken a strong line with Ukraine, and I think lots of people have respected him for doing that. But it doesn't. Those are two completely separate issues, and I think that people do have the capacity to see the Ukraine story and see the Partygate scandal as two different things. And I really don't see how he can stay on. But he has so far, against all the odds. But I think for Boris Johnson particularly, because he's been under so much pressure for so long, and it looks like he went to a lot of these parties and there's pictures of them and things like that.
And there could be more fines, Simon. That's what a lot of people are saying. He could be fined again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been 50, isn't it, so far? Which is extraordinary. 50 people fined for partying in Downing Street. I mean, we seem to have just become accustomed to it now, that, you know, but that's extraordinary. And I just feel that he's resilient and he does go on, and but he's going to have to be forced out. And
Can I just briefly talk about the Chancellor? Because he's had a torrid couple of days.
Yeah.
Apparently he was forced not to resign, because if he resigned, then the Prime Minister's hand would have been forced too.
Yeah, well, things over his personal finances, him having a green card while also being Chancellor, his wife, obviously, tax avoiding. It's not been easy for him, and he's gone from being the Chancellor that everyone loved, Dishy Rishi, during the furlough scheme, and he speaks so well, and a lot of people were very surprised that such a junior minister had this job and was doing so well in it. But it's been a tough time for him at the moment, and yeah, he's also been fined for breaking lockdown rules, the two most powerful people in government, and it's just amazing. But I think that there's going to have to be a vote, and Boris Johnson is the Prime Minister. He's the Prime Minister. Yes, the Chancellor is a big job, but he's the Prime Minister. He's the top guy, and so I think there's going to have to be a vote, and they're going to have to force him out. But I don't think the appetite really is there amongst Tory MPs like it was once, with some people taking their letters back, asking him to resign because of the Ukraine story and because his stock has risen due to the Ukraine story. But on a level in terms of outside the Conservative Party, with all the other parties and ministers and the public mood, I don't think he can stay.
Yeah, we'll see what the local election results bring us in May.
Exactly.
Thank you, Simon. Moving on to another topic that has dominated headlines here in the UK this week. Climate activists disrupting British oil supplies. Nearly 500 people have been arrested across Greater London over the past few days as Just Stop Oil protesters glued their hands to roads and climbed on top of oil tankers in protest against the UK government's stance on oil and gas use. The protests have led to fuel shortages being reported in the south of England. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Claudia Pena Rojas, the official spokesperson for the organisation causing all of this disruption, Just Stop Oil. She joins me now from London. Claudia Pena Rojas, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. And I've got to thank you because you've clearly been busy this week. You've had more airtime than I have. Climate activists, including your organisation, Just Oil, have disrupted the UK's oil supply this week. Well, that's what you've been attempting to do. To ask you very simply, why?
Yeah, so Just Stop Oil, our demand is that the UK government stop all new fossil fuel projects. And this is because we're in a climate emergency and it is the right and necessary thing to do. You have people like Sir David King, who was the chief scientific advisor for the UK government, telling us that what we do in the next 2 to 3 years is going to determine the future of humanity. You have the UN Secretary General saying that delay equals death. And then you have the International Energy Agency saying that if governments are serious about tackling the climate crisis, then we can have no new fossil fuel developments. And this was in 2021. And in the meantime, you have the UK government looking to license over 40 new oil fields. And that is a death sentence. That is a death sentence for people in the global south who are the ones feeling the real impacts of the climate crisis right now. And it is quite frankly a death sentence for young people all over the world.
Claudia, thank you so much for mentioning the Global South, because, of course, the majority of our viewers are in the Global South. And yes, they are significantly, severely impacted by, what's been taking place over the past century. But what our viewers in Nigeria and across Africa wouldn't know is that for some reason, climate activists, British public, not the best of friends. Why is this? Why is it that with lots of this disruption, with the communication, it's just not resonating, especially because, as you said, you're trying to protect the safety of the planet. What's not clicking with your messaging?
I think there are multiple things. I think, like you were saying, there is a real disconnect between the reality of what is happening right now and what people are experiencing, in places like the UK, where we're not yet here to feel the brunt of it. So I think often it's displayed as something that happens somewhere else. It happens in Latin America, it happens in different countries in Africa, but the reality that it is going to hit here, that it is going to hit everywhere and affect every single person on this planet, does not hit. And I think the government is responsible for that, and the media is largely responsible for that, because they're not telling people the truth about the severity that is going to happen and that is happening right now.
Yes, so we had COP26 a couple of months ago. I think most people will agree not much was done. I suppose the amount of money it's spent to put that event on is one thing. We've got COP27 taking place in Africa and Egypt soon. Isn't it in venues such as these that these discussions can take place? The disruption which has led to many of, I'm sure, your friends being arrested, many lives being ruined, kicks to the body, slaps to the face. Is that the best progressive way to get the message across? Should you not be allowing leaders of some of these dirty oil companies to speak around the table about this?
I mean, you're talking about COP, right? How many COPs have we had? They happen every year and nothing happens. We get nothing but empty promises. We get nothing but lies in the place of the concrete, drastic action that we need. And time again, this government has proved that they are incapable of thinking long term, that they are incapable of protecting their people, of protecting future generations. So we can't trust them. We can't leave it up to them because they will continue to let us down. And it is up to regular people to take action to defend the future. We don't have time. Again, we have 2 to 3 years to determine the future of humanity, and we need an emergency response.
Okay, Claudia, before I let you go, just tell me, what are you hoping to have achieved from this week's demonstrations, which has been all over the press? We'll be showing our viewers some of the pictures of the scenes that have been caused this week. But what are you hoping is going to change?
Again, our demand is that the UK government put an end to all new fossil fuel projects. And I also hope that it will inspire some people to take action, to see the reality of what is happening, and to join this fight for our future, because all of our lives depend on it.
Well, it is ambitious, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So keep asking. Claudia Pena Rojas, a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
Let's change gears now and focus on politics taking place across the English Channel. Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen will once again fight it out in the second round of the French presidential election after claiming the 2 top spots in last weekend's initial vote. Polls had long predicted that the 2 candidates would face each other in the runoff scheduled on April the 24th. And now all eyes are on the second round and who voters will choose to send to the Elysee. For more on this, I'm now being joined by Paolo Ciocchetti, a political scientist at the European University Institute. He joins me from Innsbruck in Austria. Paolo Ciocchetti, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. They say a week is a long time in politics. Certainly since we spoke a couple of months ago, things have changed. All of the potential front-runners are out. Marine Le Pen remains a thorn in Emmanuel Macron's side. Is she going to do it?
Well, as expected by all commentators, Macron and Le Pen qualified for the second round with respectively 28 and 23% of the valid votes. The far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, almost got to the second place, but narrowly failed to dislodge Le Pen. We can say that Le Pen has gained a lot of traction among middle and lower classes and in peripheral area of France outside of the big cities. So it's still unlikely that she will win the election, but for sure the race will be much closer than 5 years ago.
How has the invasion of Ukraine by Russia changed the course of the campaign?
French people are very much concerned about the events in the Ukraine. However, the war has not clearly favored either of the 2 candidates. On the one hand, people are wary of the past friendship and contacts between Le Pen and Vladimir Putin, so they think that she is not quite credible enough to stand up to Russia and protect the French and European interest on this area. On the other hand, people and voters are also very much concerned about the economic consequences of the war in Ukraine, the rise of gas prices, the rise of electricity prices, the general rise in the cost of living, and therefore are not 100% behind the hard line of NATO and the European Union on this issue. So this may also be a good point for Le Pen to gain some uncertain voters.
Well, it's certainly a nail-biting. We'll have to invite you back, Paolo, at the end of the month to try and analyse the result. Who is going to get the Elysee seat? We'll just have to wait and see. Paolo Chiocchetti, a political scientist, thanks so much for joining me on the show. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. Bye.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, I'll be speaking with Dr. Azad Mupen, the founder of Aster DM Healthcare Limited, about next month's Global Nursing Awards, which comes with a $250,000 prize. And earlier in the week, WBO cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie spoke to Channel's Business Global about how his challenging upbringing has inspired him to give back to young boxing fans in Nigeria. See you after the break. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In just a few weeks' time, the Global Nursing Awards will be taking place in Dubai in recognition of the tireless work the profession has been conducting over the past 2 years. More than 23,000 nursing professionals from over 184 countries have been nominated, with a grand prize of $250,000 for the winner. Aster DM Healthcare Limited, one of the world's largest private healthcare service providers, is the creator of the awards, and the firm's founder, Dr. Azad Mupen, joins me now from Dubai for more on this. Dr. Azad Mupen, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. I think I'll start with a pretty silly question, given the past couple of years we've had, but just tell me why Aster have decided to get involved in these awards, considering the $250,000 prize money is very, very generous.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And as we all know, the nurses are the backbone of any healthcare system. And for us, we have out of the 25,000 people in 7 countries, 7,000 are nurses, and they have been doing a fantastic service all throughout, and especially in the last 2 years. So what we thought is that there is a requirement for us to recognize them, not only in one country, but in all the countries. So when you look at the nurses, what happens is that they work as hard or even harder than doctors. They are as qualified as doctors. But ultimately, when it comes to their financial benefits as well as their recognition and all, it is much lower. The doctors and other people get that recognition. I, being a doctor, I can tell that. So we have been looking at this very important area of how can we give that feeling of importance, as well as how can we give something solid to the nurses. So that's how we thought about this award, which has to be globally recognizing the nurses, as well as which has to be a substantial amount, which shows the importance of this. It can't be a small amount, which won't tell the world that this is a major thing which a large healthcare company is looking at.
Yes, here. It certainly goes further than clapping on a doorstep, doesn't it? You just mentioned, Doctor, some of the huge global footprint that Aster has. And we do know, of course, especially the majority of our viewers are in Africa, that from region to region, the nuances within healthcare differ. But can you tell me kind of what are some of the similarities between some of the nurses that work within your practice, and also some of the differences?
Yeah. So when we look at different areas, the requirements differ. We are into 7 countries, as I told, and we are into different segments of the population. We have some of the brands which are catering to the high-end population, to the high-income population, and we also have the major brand, which is Aster, which is catering to the middle income population. And we also have the Access brand, which is for the people who are the blue collar workers and people who are in the lower income category. So depending on what is the requirement of people, we sort of tweak it in such a way that there is accessibility for all the people for our healthcare, the bouquet of services that we offer. We also have hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, and we are providing a full comprehensive healthcare to the people to whom we are trying to bring healthcare closer to them. And nurses, they are the major components of that. A doctor may just spend few minutes with a patient, whereas the nurses spend hours together, and they are actually the people who are taking care of the patient. So it's extremely important that these people who are risking their lives, of course, the doctors also are doing that, but they're risking their lives, and those people should be recognized. And this is in different geographies in different ways. See, when you go to countries, Western countries, or even to the Middle East, compared to the India or Africa, the doctors, the nurses are differently recognized. In the Western countries, there is significant recognition for the nurses, and they are also very well paid. Whereas when it comes to Middle East, it is okay, they are well paid. But when it comes to the Africa or India, the nursing profession doesn't get that salaries or the recognition. So there is a difference depending on the geography also in the way in which the nurses are being recognized and compensated.
Of course, I'm sure lots of our viewers will agree with you. We're running out of time, Dr. Azad. But before I let you go, tell me what the judging panel will be looking for in the winner, which I believe is due to be announced next month in Dubai.
Yeah, I'm sure that the judging, who are very, very prominent people, and they are from different parts of the world. The most important things which I understand after speaking to many of them is that one is the compassion. The way in which a nurse is compassionate, that is one of the most important thing which they are looking at. And of course, along with that, they are also looking at the excellence in their work. Have they done the work in the best possible way a nurse should be providing? So that, I think, is the care and compassion is the most important, the cornerstone for the service of a nurse. And along with that, she should be doing it in the most excellent way, providing the skills as a professional. So these two are the important things which they will be looking at.
Yes, care, passion, excellence. I think we could all do with some of those personality traits, couldn't we? Dr. Azad Moopen, founder of Aster DM Healthcare. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Thank you, Doctor. Now to our final topic. For decades, charities from across the world have been funding sports projects to bring about social change to positively impact the lives of young people forever. Boxing, which has historically been connected with less privileged communities, has become a prominent grassroots activity that is doing just that, giving young people a chance to succeed in life. During a courtesy visit to the Nigeria High Commission in London, British-Nigerian WBO cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okoli spoke to Channel's Business Global about how his road to success has inspired him to change the lives of young people living in Nigeria.
I think the most important thing is to actually create vision for me. I'm a boxer, so that's the thing that I know first. So I know that where I come from to where I am now is a massive change, and it's been able to inspire not just people of my community in London, but in Nigeria and worldwide. So I feel creating eyes on boxing in Nigeria, the young up-and-coming talent, will motivate more people to turn to boxing and sports, and in turn the ones that go on and do become world champions are going to be able to take what they have and make it worldwide. And then just on the infrastructure level, I think something that I can actually help with is being present. So in terms of gyms, in terms of helping in that side, and then on my own ego / helping, I think that having a fight in Nigeria is something that is on my bucket list. Before going back recently, before anything, I think that just to know that for me, obviously the love that I have for my parents, I want to be able to show them, obviously they've come, they've seen my fights and whatever, but to show them, you know what, you grew up here, you know, gave birth to me in England, but I'm gonna come back to, you know, home and show you what I can do on your soul. It changed when I turned professional, just in the sense of like, I became more of my own person, more of a man. You know, you have to you only get one chance, you know, and it forces you to be in a position where you go and get it. So it changed in that way. And in terms of becoming a champion, it's more the pride and stuff that I feel, you know, all the other stuff that comes with it is just extra. But for me, the look at my little sister's face, you know, when I came back as a champion, and, you know, the sort of stuff that I'm able to do, because I've always been a boxer, but when you become a world champion, it elevates what you're able to do in terms of like going back to Nigeria, doing whatever else. So for me, it's just the beginning, and I believe there's so much more that can be done. And even coming here today, I don't really taken the magnitude of it until I was here, you know, and for me, I feel inspired, I feel motivated, and I feel blessed about the future. In the simplest way, they are the strongest link between Nigerians in England and Nigeria. So without them, there is no channel. So you have to have everyone here on board, everyone here singing out the same hymn sheet, so that people like our great president are able to create that link and we can do more. I think I'm just a man, you know, there's God above. So for me, it's just having a team and having a commission on the same mission is necessary.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channel's Business Global. Goodbye.